Welcome, welcome. Whether you're joining me live or you're watching in the recording, welcome to Heart and Mind. I'm Dr. Dina McMillan, and you're at episode 27, where we're going to discuss a topic relevant to anyone and everyone watching this. We're going to talk about overcoming past relationships. Are you ready to join me? Let's do this. Now, we're live streaming every Tuesday night. That's US time. I know I have people who watch from Australia. I have people who watch from the UK and from Canada. So you'll have to adapt it to US time. It's 8 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. Central time, 6 p.m. Mountain time, and 5 p.m. on the Pacific coast. Now, I usually have my friend Melinda Richards join me from Queensland in Australia, where it's 11 a.m. on Wednesday for her. And I have a few people who've contacted me who watch from Sydney and Melbourne, where it's 1 hour later. So it's 12 noon on Wednesday for the people in Australia. Now, it's stupid o'clock in the morning in the UK. So welcome all my UK people with insomnia, although I suspect a lot of you watch the recording. So welcome, welcome. Let's get going. Now, before we start, in case you're not familiar with what social psychology is, I'm a social psychologist. I'm not a clinical psychologist. If you go on my website, which I will post the website address at the end of the show, and you decide you want to hire me for whatever reason, or even when you're watching the show, understand I'm a social psychologist. Now, while we study a lot of the same things that clinical psychologists study about neuroses and psychoses and emotional issues and personal problems, we look also at the brain, how the brain functions, and we look at learning, influence, persuasion, manipulation, coercion, indoctrination, and even brainwashing. Now, when I say we look at it, I have to be honest. The reason for the evil pictures that always accompany this is because we don't just learn these things. We don't just observe events that occur organically in our environments. We actually do experiments to figure out how people's learning can change, how their beliefs and behaviors can be altered by an outside force on purpose. And usually we're looking to see how it can be done without alerting that person that it was someone else pulling those strings. Now, it's an important science, but it's also a little on the dark side. So my goal is to make everyone that I come in contact with manipulation proof. And one of the ways you do that is to understand how you're being influenced by other people and what you can do to protect yourself. Now, another aspect of social psychology, I know it may be weird to you that I put slides up and images up when I do a show. It may feel like you're at a presentation at a class or something. The only reason I do it is because there have been so many studies that have found that if you have a relevant image accompanying information, you are significantly more likely to remember that information because of that picture. It's called a picture superiority effect, if you want to look it up, or a visual superiority effect. And it's one of the reasons I spend time putting relevant imagery up on the screen when I do a show. Now, speaking of relevant, here's something for all of you who've decided you're going to be in charge. Your New Year's resolution is, I am not going to be taken advantage of again by anybody. Hopefully, that was one of your resolutions. And by buying this book, you can support Daily Clout's historic work to bring knowledge to the public that otherwise big corporations and people who are doing evil deeds want to hide. So the Pfizer papers can be found on Amazon, and it's the latest analysis of the Pfizer clinical trial documents. That's important. This is information that they wanted to hide for 75 years. And there have been people, including Dr. Naomi Wolf, Amy Kelly, and others, who got together and trolled through that data and then brought the information to you so you can really understand what's going on with these pharmaceutical companies and don't just dismiss the protests against them as a conspiracy theory. Now, today's topic, it's relevant to everyone. Now, most of the time, when I do a topic, it's relevant at least to somebody you know, perhaps to you, maybe somebody you know. I don't know anyone that this isn't relevant to. And keep in mind, this topic was suggested to me. So I want to bring that to you. If you go on the Daily Clout or you go on my X feed, which is at Dr. Dina 1, so A, that little A symbol, DRDINA 1 on X, you can sign in and you can leave comments. You can have questions, or you can do it at any time. You can go on Rumble, you can go on X, anywhere. You can go on Getter. Leave me a comment about something you want me to discuss, something you want me to expose. After all, this is free. And I'm going to tell you what I really think. I have no vested interest in keeping you coming back and paying me each time. Okay, I want to get this information to the public. So this was suggested to me, and it's a great topic because it's relevant to us all. So we're going to talk about how you can stop allowing the wounds and the scars from a divorce or a breakup, the issues involved with co-parenting that we're going to talk about quite a bit today, heartbreak, holding a grudge, even if the grudge is righteous. Okay, sometimes it's self-righteous. You were mistreated terribly. I know I have been. So holding a grudge, persistent exes. I've dealt with that too. An ex that just won't go away, that won't just take no for an answer. And also dealing with the issue if you're still in love with somebody that you're not with anymore. So are you ready to join me for this? Let's go. Ashish Kumar Jha, former Biden administration COVID-19 response coordinator, recently gave a chilling speech at the University of Michigan School of Public Health. Jha warned of a new age of pandemics fueled by bioweapons development and natural threats. He called for massive investments in vaccines against pathogens that don't even exist yet and urged a war against so-called misinformation. But the question we need to ask is, who's working on bioweapons and how many labs are there globally? Yes, Trump got the win, but bad things are still lurking in the background. Being prepared is the best defense. The wellness company's Contagion Emergency Kit, engineered by Dr. Peter McCullough and his medical board, includes 5 critical life-saving medications like ivermectin, Tamiflu, a nebulizer, and hydroxychloroquine. Medications that every household can now have access to, minus the red tape. It's simple. Fill out a digital intake form and your kit arrives in 1 to 2 weeks. Don't wait until the deep state puts their plans into action. Stay ready for the unexpected. Head to dailyclouthealth.com and use the code DailyClout to save $32 off. Plus, you get free shipping. Kits are only available to U.S. residents. Ooh, so now we're going to go on a little bit of gas. Okay. If you have been on social media at all over the last, I'd say 10 days, huge baby's mama drama since Valentine's Day regarding Elon Musk and the fact that he has 13 children by 4 different women. Now, again, this is the topic that does, if you guys want to talk about stuff like this, just let me know. We can talk about anything, about what children need. Is this fair? Does the fact that someone is wealthy compensate for the fact that the parent isn't there in the home? The parent isn't in any way committed to the mom. We can talk about vindictive exes. Oh, that might be a good show. Send me a note. Do you want me to do a show on vindictive exes? Because that could be quite interesting. But more than that, I have to say I keep it separate because Elon doesn't ask me about his personal life. All I know is all of us have a lot to be grateful for with this man, but we are not Democrats. So with the difference between the Democrats and the MAGA, I won't say Republican, and MAGA, is with the Democrats, as long as you are, repeating the narrative and supporting the cause, you can do literally anything and they will ignore it. The average person won't find out about it. And if they do find out about it, they'll look away from it and say, but Trump. We're not like that. So poor Elon has realized that in spite of saving the Western world, he's still being held accountable. So if you want to talk about vindictive exes and how not to have vindictive exes, that can be a great show. But that's not what we're about today. We're about you and your life. Celebrity gossip can be fun because it doesn't touch us directly. We think it does, but we can talk about that another time. I want to talk about you and the relationships you have and the relationships you've had and how it can all be handled better. For instance, co-parenting is permanent. Once you have a child with someone, that is a bond that never goes away. Handling it better is not only smart and brings less stress and drama to your life, it's better for the children. And anything that's better for the children is a good thing in my book. So we're going to talk about things about that too. Now, when we talk about overcoming past relationships, often that's easier said than done. And I don't want anybody to at me on social media saying, but it's not my fault. I try to be reasonable. Okay, I know. Look, I have exes too. Been there, done that. Got weird looking t-shirts because of it. Okay, so I do understand. But we're going to even talk about how to make things a little bit easier, even if it's not you causing the issues. Okay, we're going to talk about how to set boundaries, how to release emotions, and how to co-parent more successfully. It can be challenging, especially it's not just the other parent doing something. A lot of kids realize that they can play the parents off against each other, put them in competition, and they get more stuff. So it can get really complicated. And even the co-parenting issue, I'd like to have a single show where we just talk about that. So if that's something that interests you, please contact me. Again, you can contact me on X, on my X page, which is at Dr. Dina 1, that's the number 1. You can contact me on Rumble under the Heart and Mind page. You can go on Daily Cloud at the Heart and Mind page. Leave me some input. Go on Facebook. Leave me some input if something is important to you or to your family and you want to know more about it. But co-parenting is a toughie. And yes, again, sometimes the issues are not your fault. Sometimes it's not even the other parent's fault. Sometimes it's the economy. Look what happened during COVID, when so many people had to choose between taking an experimental drug with no safety testing or losing their jobs. And some people, on a matter of principle, said, I have to lose my job. Well, if you lose your job and you are co-parenting because your relationship is separate, how are you going to make those child support payments? How are you going to have time? What if the other parent says, if you're not vaccinated, I won't let the kids spend time with you? Things got very, very difficult. And even without COVID hanging over our head, they're trying to do this bird flu thing, but we're not buying it. I want my eggs and I want my chicken. Okay, you're not. How come it doesn't affect pigeons? Pigeons eat everything. They're the dirtiest birds around. How come we aren't having pigeons with bird flu? But sometimes, to get back to the topic, sometimes the issues aren't your fault. Sometimes it's the other person. Sometimes it's a new person in that person's life. And we're going to talk about that too. It can be a new person in your life. It can be a new person in the other person's life. It could be circumstances. It could be the kids being difficult. It could be grandparents. Life is complex and challenging, but believe me, improvements can still be made. I'm trying to get it so that you actually retain some measure of sanity and control over your life. So here's another thing, hot topic, once bitten, twice shy. Often people will be defensive in a relationship if they've had bad experiences. And that can be dealing with romantic relationships, which is what, of course, we also think about. But what about family relationships? If you had difficulties with one sibling or with a parent, will that make you more defensive when dealing with another one? You have to allow your emotional wounds to heal. We're going to talk a little bit, just a little bit, about what you can do about that. And all this is for a goal. Let's keep the old relationships from ruining your new relationships. How does that sound? Does that sound good? Yeah, I thought so. Since the new year started, everything is going so fast. So how are things going with you? And how are your 2025 New Year's resolutions going? One of my top resolutions is to focus more on my well-being. And we all know one of the foundations of well-being is a good night's sleep. So if I could do just one thing to improve my sleep and overall well-being, it's taking the number one mineral for that, which also helps with focus, stress levels, and mood regulation during the day. Yes, I'm talking about magnesium. Specifically, I'm talking about the magnesium breakthrough by Bioptimizers. The 7 different forms of magnesium in this supplement are involved in over 600 different biochemical reactions in the body. Pretty much every function in your body gets upgraded when you take magnesium, from the quality of your sleep to your brain function, from metabolism to stress levels. And let's face it, even if your 2025 resolution wasn't to focus on your health as it was mine, how are you really going to be able to achieve all of your goals without quality sleep and stress management support? Really? So do yourself a favor and make magnesium breakthrough part of your daily routine this year so you can get the vitality you need to conquer your dreams. Go to bioptimizers.com/dailyclout now and enter the promo code dailyclout to get 10% off any order. And if you subscribe, not only will you get amazing discounts and free gifts, you'll make sure your monthly supply is guaranteed. Again, that's bioptimizers.com/dailyclout and use the promo code dailyclout. So, as we go through this, I'm going to tell you something. One of the good things is, as you know, if you've ever watched this show before, or if you ever come to my live seminars, workshops, you know one thing I try not to be is a hypocrite. So anything I suggest to anyone else, I always try it out on myself. And that includes dealing with past relationships and asking myself, did I do this the best way I could? Am I handling that well? Or are there still residual leftovers that are causing me issues? I want you to dig deep and be really honest with yourself. And I want you to use things that you find. You don't have to tell anybody else that you watch the show, although I hope you will, because we could use to, it's great to get the word out. I'm discussing things on the show that nobody else will tell you. Most social psychology info is kept under lock and key. Sure, there are a few books out there, but a lot of this information is kept within academia, it's kept in the marketing departments, it's kept with political advisors who use the tactics and the understandings to get people to buy things we really don't need or vote for people we really don't trust. Okay? I'm taking that information and bringing it to you because I want you to have a better life and I don't want you to be manipulated. But it only works if you work it. I saw that on some film. It only works if you work it. And this is our secret. I will not tell anybody. You don't have to tell anybody. But I would suggest, not just for this show, for every show we do, you don't have to tell, but be honest with yourself and ask yourself if this applies to you, and do yourself a favor. When I give you key tips that make it easy for you to use the knowledge, go ahead and try it. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Now, in a minute, we're going to take a closer look, and I'm going to talk about how you can overcome past relationships, leave the past in the past, and deal with those that are intruding into your present more effectively. We're talking increased tariffs on our trade partners, tax cuts, and regulation changes. And the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, is bringing lots of attention to gold lately. Learn why gold is so important and a viable diversification tactic now more than ever. Birch Gold, the only gold company I trust, is releasing their ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era with a foreword by Donald Trump Jr. To get your free copy, along with Birch Gold's free information kit on gold, text Daily Clout to the number 989898. Here are the facts. The national debt continues to increase. Our interest payments on the national debt also continue to increase. Gold is still your hedge against a weakened dollar. And Birch Gold is still the company I trust to help me convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. You should too. Text Daily Clout to 989898 for your free copy of the ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era. There's no obligation, only really good information. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, countless 5-star reviews, and thousands of happy customers, including me, you too can trust Birch Gold. Text Daily Clout to the number 989898 today. So as we look at this, have you already been, when you saw the topic and decided to tune in, was there one or more relationships that immediately came to mind? I know when it was suggested I do this topic, I immediately had some that came to mind. Now, here are just a few of the major ways that old relationships can intrude on your current life. First, you're still very hurt and very angry due to the way you were treated by an ex. I've mentioned this before because I also work in domestic abuse and violence, and I have seen so many victim survivors who cannot move on from that abusive relationship because they're still so angry at that ex. They still want that ex to apologize. They still want that ex to do this or do that. Now, you don't have to be in an abusive relationship to have been mistreated by an ex. If you're still mad, though, then you are giving that person free rent in your head. And believe me, it is intruding on your life. Here's another way, the second way. You're still caught up in the drama caused by an ex. And this is especially the case if you are co-parenting, which I mentioned we're going to talk about quite a lot because it's a permanent situation. It's something a lot of people go through, and it can get very complex and stress-inducing. There can be friends that you have in common that are still causing that drama to be part of your life. Pets that you share. There are a lot of people, I know that I live in a neighborhood with a lot of young professionals who have pets that they treat like children. And when they break up, they are actually going to court around custody of the pet. Because let's be honest, if you ever had a pet, they do become part of your family. And then what rhymes with pet, debt. Oh, that can really be a big one. Some people sign or co-sign for major items. Now, I can understand this situation arising with married couples because there are laws in most states that if you divorce, they have laws regarding how the property is split up unless you have a prenup, okay? But I have seen a lot of people who date someone or just live with someone for a little while, and they're trying to be appealing to that person. So they either sign off on a large ticket item like a car or a truck, put them on the mortgage, and then the relationship breaks up and things get ugly. If that person isn't speaking to you, then you're still obligated to pay that debt. What about, I've seen cases where they are both on the mortgage and the ex decides, I'm not going to pay my portion anymore. And so the credit rating for the person who'd been so responsible, the credit rating goes down because they never signed on to a deal where they could pay that mortgage or pay for that truck or car all by themselves. Things can get really ugly with regard to debt. So just as a little clue, no debts with anyone you're not married to. And even then, be very careful. Third, still in love. We're going to talk about that a little more. If you're still in love with an ex, it makes things very complicated. And here's something where I see more men with this problem than women. And I think the reason is men, when their relationship breaks up, have a tendency, and other guys will encourage this, to immediately move on to a new partner. They don't give themselves time to grieve and to recover from a relationship. Women normally do. So women, when they break up from a relationship where their heart is broken, often will talk about it with girlfriends. They'll spend time alone. They'll go walking in nature. They'll go to a retreat. But there's one key thing that women don't do, and that causes problems. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. If you watch this program, you've heard me rave about this product and how much it's helped me. What about you? Are you ready to move easily and independently without pain or stiffness holding you back? Do you want to look in the mirror and see a plump, hydrated glow instead of more fine lines and wrinkles? Discover Native Path Collagen, made with only type 1 and type 3 collagen fibers, the two most important types that make up 90% of the collagen in your body. It's found in your cartilage, bones, skin, hair, nails, and gut. Types 1 and 3 provide maximum benefits without the need for unnecessary fillers. Native Path Collagen is a single ingredient formula with no fillers, additives, or artificial sweeteners. Plus, it's third-party tested for heavy metals, ensuring purity and safety. Completely flavorless, Native Path Collagen can be added to anything: coffee, smoothies, oatmeal, you name it. Its peptide formula makes it more bioavailable, meaning it's absorbed more easily and mixes perfectly without clumping. And the best part, Native Path offers amazing bundle deals. You can get 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. with over 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, including yours truly, 8,000 five-star reviews, and a 365-day no-risk guarantee, Native Path is a trusted choice. Plus, they offer an 800 number for any questions about usage, recipes, or ingredients. And you'll speak to a real person who's there and wants to help. Join their private Facebook community to share your success stories, recipes, and to support each other on this journey called life. Visit getnativepath.com/daily clout. That's getnativepath.com/daily clout and start your transformation today. Let me spell that out so I make sure you go. It's getnativepath.com/DAILYCLOUT. So let's get back to it. Let's talk about an issue that I see a lot. And by the way, I have to admit, one of the reasons, there are two reasons that I selfishly do what I do. Number one, I would love to have a larger community of people who are tapped in to the truth, who are unplugged from the matrix. It is really hard. Prior to COVID, I had a really hard time finding people who understood how society is being manipulated. Most people didn't want to think that could happen, that it could be true. And it was challenging for me. So I'd love to have a larger community of clued in people. Also, my goal is to be an interior designer. So I would like to put myself out of work. Now, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but if I can do things to reduce domestic violence, bad relationships, sexual assault, and here's another one, stalking. Here's a fourth problem that people often have with relationships. One of the two people will not believe it's over. So it can lead to stalking, which should always be taken seriously. There is a real risk to health, to livelihood from somebody who's stalking you. It can result in harassment. A lot of people will put fake names on social media and harass an ex. That happens all the time. Vindictive behaviors, like trying to get someone fired, saying horrible things about them to mutual friends, and it can even result in assault or homicide. So if you're dealing with somebody who doesn't believe it's over, please don't think, oh, they'll recover. It'll be, the Australians say, she'll be all right, mate. And a lot of people just don't want to believe that crazy folks exist, but they do. Take it seriously, get protection. Here's another thing I see a lot. Developing a strong prejudice against whatever groups your ex belong to. So I meet women who now hate men. I meet men who now hate women. I meet a lot of men, for instance, who have told me that they now feel justified in lying, cheating, and mistreating any woman that comes in their life because of the way they were treated by an ex. I suspect they were always like that and just looking for an excuse. And maybe the ex said, this guy's not principled, and broke up. But I have seen that. Where my mom, for instance, was engaged to a guy when she was young, before she married my dad. And he had a best friend who didn't like her and was always speaking against her. And for the rest of her life, she had a bias against anybody who had features like that guy. That doesn't help you, but it happens. People often will develop a strong prejudice, blaming the entire group for what happens in a single relationship. So let's talk about how you can leave that harm in the past. I know it hurts. When there's a breakup, whether you broke it up or the other person broke it up, it is excruciating. It's complicated. It leaves wounds and scars and mess. How can we leave it more in the past and not let it damage our current and future relationships. Let's talk about that a bit. Number one, and this is what I said when I talked about women, and I said women usually handle a breakup and heartbreak better than men because they tend to give themselves time to recover. But here's one thing that women tend not to do. They don't tend to take personal responsibility for what their role in what happened. So in all these women's groups, and you know I'm around a lot of women working in domestic abuse and violence, working in stalking and sexual assault, being a woman myself, having only sisters, and getting these braids done. I won't tell you how long it takes to get my hair braided. We'll talk about that another time. But spending so much time around other women, they can go into minute detail about every flaw and fault of their ex. But I never hear mention, maybe I shouldn't have, or I shouldn't, I should have paid attention, or whatever. Do not do this. Realize, even if your only fault is bad taste, you had a choice. That person did not force their way into your life. So take responsibility for your own role. And here's something I did right. Now we can go have a whole show about things I've done wrong. But one thing I did, I had a longstanding relationship where there was a lot of conflict. And when it broke up, I was heartbroken, whatever. And I said, this is a rare opportunity for me to look at what faults I carry with me into my relationships. And one thing I realized is that I had a temper and I would vent my temper when I was upset. That's when I took my permission back and said, no, I don't have a right to yell, to call someone a name, to say mean things. I don't care what the provocation is. I don't have the permission to do that. I won no matter what, because I didn't take that anger into another relationship. You can do the same thing. It doesn't have to be what broke you up. It can be anything. It can be a time to make better choices. Now, here's something I often say. Did you ignore the red flags? Remember, I work in domestic abuse, so I see this a lot. And in fact, one of the things that bugged me and why I developed my Unmasking the Abuser program and wrote my book, But He Says He Loves Me, is that a lot of the serious red flags for a potentially abusive relationship are actually presented as sexy and cute and cool to women in a lot of the content that is marketed to us. You read a romance novel, this guy is so off, but he's presented as the ideal partner and they live happily ever after at the end. But if there are red flags that you knew were red flags, did you ignore them? If you got good advice, I know somebody that got into a relationship that ended up in divorce, painful divorce. She was warned when she first started dating the guy by his previous ex that he was a problem, and the woman was very specific about where it was going to go awry. And sure enough, that manifested. But she ignored it. Do you move too fast? When we talk a little later, I'm going to talk about this. A lot of times, and again, this is, if you watch a lot of chick flicks, look at fairy tales. Sleeping Beauty married a guy because he kissed her. Cinderella because he found her shoe. These women don't know these men. Seriously, what are we being taught? Moving too fast is a huge mistake. And did you replay all your mistakes from the past? Now, here's another thing you can do. Establish reasonable boundaries. So these are things you can do to actually make it better. First was take responsibility. Now we're talking about establish reasonable boundaries with your ex and be clear on repercussions for not following them for both of you. So you have a rule that you don't bring the kids back after 10 p.m., or you have a rule that you don't just show up without calling first. If you do, I don't answer the door. If you do, anything we planned for the next month doesn't happen. Have some reasonable boundaries and stick to them. Integrity is important here. I know I keep harping on that and growth mindset, because those are the two things that the gifts I can give you that will significantly improve your life now in 2025. Developing integrity is one of them. So make the rules reasonable, not all on one side. Don't take advantage of the fact the person's hurt or whatever, or you're hurt. Make sure the rules are reasonable, communicate them clearly, stick to them. Don't give somebody a free pass because they're charming or cute or whatever. No free passes. Stick to the rules and get your paper. And by that, you're going to hear me say this throughout this. Yep, the law needs to get involved, depending on what it is. Now, you can be like Sheldon on Big Bang Theory and have a relationship agreement that you both sign. But if there's any kind of debt, co-parenting, or whatever, you need to see a lawyer. Don't just trust that everything will be okay. I'm not saying you shouldn't trust people, but here's one time you need to get your paper. Be a responsible and reasonable co-parent. This is not your time to get your own back. If you try to be vindictive with the other parent, you know who's going to get hurt? Your children. That is not what you want for them. Again, if you are co-parenting, don't rely on anything verbal. Get a legal agreement. No verbal arrangements, because the partner could start off reasonable, and I've had this happen in my own life. The partner could start off reasonable, but what if they get involved with somebody who isn't reasonable? And they allow that new person to interfere, and it can cause chaos, especially if you don't have a legal agreement. Now, both of you need to put that in there and talk about it from the beginning. Do not let new people interfere in your agreement with each other. But at the same time, keep your legal agreement updated. If circumstances change, upgrade and update the agreement. Don't keep it the same way if the child is tiny and the child is a teen. You need to keep it updated. And do not turn the children against your ex. You will always regret that. If your ex is a jerk, the kids will see it. Don't do that. It is unfair to the other parent. They left you for someone else. Been there, done that. It's excruciating. But it's not reason to punish your children by not allowing them to have a relationship with the other parent. Have set rules, but be reasonable. And if you have integrity and principles, your kids, especially as they get older, will make up their own mind and come down on your side because you did not try to turn them against your ex. Again, don't move too fast. If you are really crushed by a relationship breakup, getting involved with somebody new will not solve it. Now, here's another thing I often see in my domestic violence work, and that is a lot of times a new abuser will get involved with a victim survivor. And they spend so much time talking about all the bad things the ex did that it takes the victim survivor's eye off of the ball. So she's not looking at the new guy very closely because she wants to get back at him. She wants to go to the legal meetings, with the new hot guy on her arm, or, it could happen if the abuser is a woman. You might be tempted to have the really hot chick that you bring in and say, I'm over you kind of thing. Don't do this. Don't move too fast. Take a break and do everything you can to heal. Here's some more helpful tips, because I'm going to give you helpful tips. We always have to end on a positive note on Heart and Mind. Now, if you have any questions or comments, we still have some time. We've got more than 15 minutes. So if you have questions or comments, go on the Facebook page, Daily Clout Facebook page, go on my X feed and sign in. You can actually comment. You go on Rumble. If you comment, it'll actually come up on my screen and we can talk about it. If you are still furious with your ex, that's even more reason not to get involved with somebody yet. Don't scare off new people. I know for me, one of the biggest warning signs when I'm dealing with a new guy is if he spends the entire first coffee that we get together or first dinner that we get together just bagging his ex. saying how horrible she was. She did this, she did that, she did the other. And I'm sure you guys feel the same way because you feel like, oh my God, is she going to blame me? And sometimes this even can be used as a manipulation tool, somebody being enraged at the ex, because it can be a way for a manipulative person to let you know the rules you have to abide by if you want a relationship with them. So people will say things like, oh my God, I can't believe that. She expected me to check in every day or to call if I wasn't going to, it was going to be late. She knows what my job is like. So you're sitting there thinking, I really want a relationship with this guy, so I know that I can't call and check on him or whatever. So just, if you're mad, we'll talk about what you can do, but please, please, please do not take that anger out on the new people. And repeat after me. Karma is a bitch. So when we talked about people who've done horrible things to you and you feel righteously indignant because you were mistreated, let it go. Forgive them. Don't forget, because you don't want to ever be in that again. But say, okay, I will let universal principles take care of that. I'm not going to sit around hanging on to anger because all that's going to do is give me stomach acid, high anxiety, cortisol levels will make it hard for me to sleep. It's not going to help me. It's not going to change what they do. Karma's a bitch. Karma will take care of them. Let karma take care of that bad ex. Don't try to get revenge. Don't be vindictive, because all that's going to do is ruin your present and ruin your future. I have to say, if I ever went out with somebody and they said, yeah, my ex was just so horrible. And you know me, if you've come to the show before, you know that sometimes I will actually stay on a date with somebody that I would never have a relationship with because I get good info that helps me decide what people need to know and what I can share with other people in my workshops and seminars. But I would look at somebody who was really angry and said, yeah, and I did this, and I did that, and I did the other. And I would say, oh my goodness, I need to run. So if you are doing horrible things to your ex, if the current partner finds out or a future partner finds out, they will no longer trust you and it could break up your relationship. It's not worth it. Let karma do it. And because I keep talking about getting legal agreements and getting paper, I know lawyers are expensive. Most of them charge hundreds of dollars an hour. And if you have a breakup where you're co-parenting or you're dealing with work issues, you may not have the extra money. So you might think, oh, maybe I should just skip that. Or we can write something and sign it, but we won't have it legally, a notary public or somebody legally look over it and see if it's enforceable because it costs too much. Go to legal aid. That's what legal aid is for. And call up law firms. Ask them if they do pro bono work. Those that don't ask don't get. You might be surprised. I have been so surprised in my life about things just because that I received because I dared to ask. If you get the audio copy of my book, But He Says He Loves Me, you'll notice the voice of the abuser because it's in two voices, my voice and the voice of an abuser, as he tells other men, this is how you train your woman. And the guy who does the male voice has an incredible voice. Well, Shakespearean trained British actor who was on one of my favorite TV shows. So I looked up his management online and I called his manager and we had a girl chat. It was a woman, had a girl chat. And she talked him into doing it. Most people look at me and say, you are crazy. Most people wouldn't look at someone that they've watched for years on a favorite show and say, I want that person to read my book. Those that don't ask, don't get. Never hurts to ask. So call up some law firms, ask if they'll help you. Also, please get counseling or therapy if recovery is difficult. Every time you think about this person, your stomach clenches and you get enraged and you see red and you want to hit something, get counseling or therapy because you're not healing. What that means is the pain is still way too raw and you are not healing properly. So you need to heal. Don't, and for guys, please, again, nobody has to know you're going to a counselor. Nobody has to know you're getting therapy. They won't tell. You don't have to tell, but people will notice the difference if you start to heal. And every time you have more than one drink, you're no longer going into a long diatribe about how much your ex hurt you. They'll notice that. And it will improve your relationships. So therapy, counseling, if you're super, super hurt, or if the healing process is just taking too long. Now, here's another thing we've spoken about before, a fixed action pattern. Now, often a fixed action pattern is used to represent something that's almost on automatic. One of the fixed action patterns is reciprocity. So if somebody gives you something, you often want to give them back. It's one of the first things we learn as kids. Somebody gives you something, even if it's just a thank you, but often that's why when you go to grocery stores, they give away those free samples. They're not being generous. They know that because of the fixed action pattern, the rule of reciprocity, if they give you free food, you are significantly more likely to buy whatever product you just tasted, even if it's just okay. Now, I'm not sure you'd do it if you hated it, but if you don't hate what they're offering you, you're going to buy it. Fixed action pattern. But fixed action patterns are not only for things like you give me this, I give you that. They can be as complex as mating rituals or even friendship rituals. If you meet somebody you're attracted to, what do? How do you behave? I have a very close friend who, to my knowledge, has never had a relationship that is even close to healthy. In fact, her relationships are so off that the light from healthy would take years to reach her. And whenever she breaks up with one of these really interesting guys, we would spend hours and hours and hours and days and days and days talking about what he did wrong, and she would be talking about what she did wrong. She was supposedly taking personal responsibility, but what she didn't do is interrupt the pattern. She did not interrupt her fixed action pattern. So every time she met a new guy that she was attracted to, she would do the exact same thing that got her in trouble the other 25 times. She'd immediately start a sexual relationship with the guy. She'd immediately start thinking about, just like the mental planning the future stuff. Oh, it would be great to go out with somebody with his job. We could do this. And, our vacations could be great because he'd have access to that. She would keep doing it. I tried everything to get her to fix it, but it had to be done herself. I couldn't do it for her. Now, fixed action patterns, the type I'm talking about, where there's a complex little dance, are triggered by emotions or primal drives. In her case, it was lust. Whenever she felt lust, she'd go into this, and she obviously had high oxytocin, because as soon as she'd sleep with these guys, she'd be emotionally attached to them. Nothing she did would have her learn. Are you like this too? What about friendships? I've met people that as soon as they meet somebody at an event or whatever, they start calling them all the time. They start moving everybody else around, away so they can spend time with this new person. Nothing counts but the new person. They fixate on the new person. I want you to see if you have any fixed action patterns in your relationships that are causing you trouble. And this is something where if you have people you trust, That can be really helpful. Sit around and talk about it and give them permission to tell you the truth. And your part of this commitment is you cannot get angry with them if they actually are honest with you, because a lack of honesty won't help you. But this is one of the things that keeps therapists and psychologists in business. People unwilling to fix the fixed action pattern. I know working with abuse, I have identified what abusers do. My Unmasking the Abuser program is the only education program that actually teaches specific manipulation tricks used by abusers at the beginning of a relationship. Now, the whole program itself also defines what happens later, but I actually teach people what it looks like at the very beginning. And I have so many people who still will not apply the information. As soon as they feel any kind of attraction or desire, their fixed action pattern takes over and they won't do anything about it. Now, you know, one of the things that I talk about on this program that makes me different, I don't believe people should just let life happen to them. I'm not saying there's no room for spontaneity or surprises or trust. What I'm saying is that if you want the good life you want, you need to take control and take active steps, consistent active steps to improve your life. Here's another thing for everyone. Learn what's actually involved in having a healthy, happy relationship. Don't think you know already. Look it up. There are books and YouTube videos and shows. Find out what's involved. Because sometimes if you're guessing or basing it off what you've had already, there could be steps or aspects of healthy relationships that you not only don't have, you didn't know they needed to be there. And their absence is causing problems. You don't want that. So learn. Look it up. As I said, YouTube is free. Look it up on a YouTube video. Now, here's a last bit of advice. And this is for, first, I'm talking to all the men, because this is what these are the gripes that bring people to my office the most. Men, if you are in a relationship, do not only show affection when you want sex. It's one of the biggest gripes that women have. And if you keep doing that, don't be surprised if she starts to pull away, because it is something that really bothers most women on a deep level. They feel used. So show affection when there's no sexuality involved. And for women, it's not all about the kids or the parents or your work. You need to take care of your guy. I do a lot of work training women how to be really good partners to men so that they are cherished and loved and a hard act to follow. I think the smartest thing a woman can be is a hard act to follow. But that requires giving your man what he needs. Taking care of his children is not a replacement for taking care of him. So get a babysitter. Oh, you don't have money? Do an exchange with someone else. You watch their kids, they'll watch your kids. Spend time alone with him. Pay attention to him. When he comes home, listen to him, and don't bug him when he walks in the door. Okay, most guys need to decompress. So give him some time to decompress so that he's ready to be receptive to whatever you have to say. Now, again, questions, comments, both about this show, any area of this show that you want to see expanded into a whole show, contact me. It's pretty easy. Go on X, go on Facebook, go on Rumble. Write down, can you expand on this because I've had a real issue, or can you talk about that aspect? That's how I get my show ideas, because I want to help you. It's all about you and what you need. So I want to thank all of you for being here with me today. Thank you for joining me. You'll notice you'll see my website below, www.drdinamcmillan.com. You can reach me there too, and we can talk about something on the show. You can be on the show. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.